Director Wray, I'm from Georgia. You've been there the last several years. 20 years ago, if you looked at the list of groups that the SPLC would have said were hate groups, those groups would have been proud to have been named by them, and I think most Americans would have agreed with the list that they put out. Today, they put out lists with names like the American Family Association and the Alliance Defending Freedom, and yet one of their attorneys was just recently charged in Atlanta with domestic terrorism. It bothers me to see them cited as a source from your agency on who is and is not considered a domestic terrorist. Can you speak to the relationship between the FBI and the influence that the SPLC has? Is it just a list that you look at from time to time, or is there coordination?
Well, first off, just to be clear, I've considered Georgia my home since I first got married, back in 1989. So we have that in common. Second, as to the product that you're referring to, the intelligence product, when I first saw it, and I said this yesterday, I was aghast. It was a single piece of an intelligence product by one field office. It did not meet our standards, and I had it immediately removed and withdrawn, and we've taken steps to make sure it doesn't happen again. And one of the reasons I say that, one of the ways in which I say that is the sourcing, to your question, the sourcing didn't meet our standards.
Thank you. You represent an agency that for years I held in the highest regard. I will tell you, I lost a lot of respect for the Justice Department and the FBI with what happened in a certain case in Valdosta, where there was absolute evidence that a man and 2 kids had absolutely nothing to do with the death of another individual. That man happened to be an FBI agent, and while he and his family were all cleared by state, local, and the FBI said nothing happened here, there was indisputable evidence. The U.S. Attorney's Office in Washington, D.C. carried out a civil rights investigation for over 2.5 years, and while that family was getting death threats repeatedly because of that investigation continuing to stay open, the U.S. Attorney's Office refused to release the absolute evidence of where all 3 individuals were. What can be done to ensure that the U.S. Attorney's Office is held accountable when they take actions like that that put Americans at risk, especially in this case, it was an FBI agent and his family?
Well, I confess I'm not familiar with the specific case. In general, speaking just in general, when there are disciplinary violations by prosecutors, there's something called OPR, the Office of Professional Responsibility.
I'm gonna move on then. I'm gonna speak with you. We're gonna get familiar with that case because I think that the agents would like for you to probably be familiar with that case. China flew a spy balloon across the United States. And less than 15 days later, Ford Motor Company, one of America's most iconic brands, said they were going to team with CATL Technology to develop a multi-billion-dollar battery plant. Director Haynes, is it time for us to declassify a lot of the information that we have on China, their espionage, and what they're doing to Americans in our industry so that we can explain to corporate America that you have to break your ties with communist China?
Thank you, sir. We do actually and have been continuing to try to declassify as much information as we can on these issues so as to ensure that corporate America has everything that they need to protect themselves.
The key to not going to war with China is for corporate America to understand they have to dual source or multi-source and get out of there. With that, I yield the 2 seconds, and Director Wray, sorry I had to cut you off, but I'm on that clock.